Baobab Brilliance, Perspectives on Audacity, features Black women who are the embodiment of don't speak about it, be about it. Black women who write the vision and make it plain. I'm your host, Makia Moody. Let's get into it. Good morning, Jeri.
Good morning, Makia.
I am so glad that Jeri Rayon has said yes to joining me for this episode of Baobab Brilliance Perspectives on Audacity. Um, Jeri, before we get into our conversation, I would love to hear if there is a word or phrase that describes how you're entering this energy exchange we're about to have.
I'm going to say rooted. I feel very rooted today, given the climate that we're in. But our community is holding space for one another in ways that feel familiar and have me feeling like I can navigate this time. So I'm very rooted.
I love hearing that, and I will jump on the rooted train. I feel present,
Yeah.
which has been a difference over the last couple of weeks, where I feel as though
Mm-hmm.
I've been kind of in turbulent water, just being
Mm-hmm.
like bounced around with whiplash from all of the craziness and horrible executive orders and all the things. So I appreciate your rootedness, because that's something that I've been craving.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all are. But I probably have an unpopular opinion about this moment. So, which is, Sun Tzu says, where there's opportunity or challenge, there's also opportunity. And because everything is breaking, I feel like it's an opportunity for us to rebuild something better and stronger. So I am looking forward to challenging the things that are in front of us because to me, I feel like it's a test.
Hmm. That's
I didn't
what
say it made sense. I said that's how I feel.
Right. No, that's one perspective.
Hmm.
And it makes sense to me that that might be your perspective, given what I know about your work and your background.
Hmm.
So you're a veteran arts administrator, cultural worker, and you have founded a number of things, one of them being the Black Donors Project. Um, and so I think as a builder, I'm trying to weave together a question where I can pull forward the notion that you're saying, like it's an opportunity for some of the breaking for there to be a rebuilding. But
Yeah.
I also want to maybe pivot to the Black Donors Project and what the inspiration or rationale was for building that, and how you might see that meeting this moment that we're in, if you do.
Yeah. With the Black Donors Project, I think that after the 2020 reckoning, we were learning that individually we could probably bring so much more to the table, and how we are interconnected because we were dealing with the pandemic and the racial reckoning of 2020 at the same time. And it was all up to us to do individual things for our collective community. So I really started to look at, what is my skill set? What can I bring to the community? And everyone that I spoke to, every woman that I spoke to was just like, start at your now, start where you are. And I didn't know what that looked like, but what I did know was my skill set was in philanthropy and a nonprofit. And I did understand, after working with a number of predominantly white institutions and then working with culturally specific institutions, there was a huge difference. And I knew the capabilities of my community that weren't necessarily being uplifted in conversations in general spaces. So I kind of wanted to do my own independent research into my community, the Black community, in terms of how do we give, why do we give, which ways do we feel like being engaged, and um, what encourages us to support one another, and what language do we use in doing it. So I started the Black Donors Project as a participatory action research project and just started asking people questions about their philanthropic giving. And it's been such an extraordinary journey that I wish that other institutions would allow themselves or have the courage to really look at the fact that philanthropy is not um, in our community, it's not rooted in transaction, it's rooted in relations. It's not about donating, it's about investing, and just how we go about it, because we bring $11 billion to this space annually. So I wanted to know, where does that show up?
Hmm. I appreciate your, I think, distinction between donating versus investing,
Mhm.
and just like the mental shift that that would be. I feel like the donation angle is more kind of like charity focused. Like
Right.
we're just gonna, you know, make a small donation to these really intractable problems and issues that we're trying to resolve versus, investing conveys more of like a long-term accompaniment, maybe doing things beyond writing a check to actually support the work and like the community transformation therein.
Yeah. And it's also investing in your dreams, investing in each other's dreams as well. Because if I know that you have an organization, a 501(c)(3), and you're raising money to do something, I'm investing in your dream. I'm investing in how you're pouring back into the community. I'm investing in our community as a whole. So, why we really do have to consider how we speak to our communities, even like in the social justice space. We use a lot of terms in which we can't necessarily use when I'm in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? So I want to make sure that we are in constant conversation and constant community. And what I'm experiencing, I can share, and that other people can take and build on it.
Hmm. How long has the Black Donors Project been active?
Active. Yeah, probably I started probably around I'm gonna say 2022, but it was in my head for years. It started off, I called it Donors, and then
Mhm.
it evolved into the Black Donors Project, simply because of the different levels, the different intersections that I was finding myself in, with regard to Black giving and how we saw it, and just being regular people, because my whole thing in starting the Black Donors Project was like, I'm a regular person. And what can a regular person do for their community and learn while they're doing it? And there's so much more that I learned with the Black Donors Project than I ever did in school or I ever did on the job.
Mm. So you contain multitudes, and I invite you to share more. You've kind of given us a flavor for the Black Donors Project, and I know you have a lot of other creative endeavors like Artists Within Reach, Notes to
Mhm.
My Younger Self. And I would just love for you to give our listeners a taste of, I think, all of your, in my mind, I'm seeing a rainbow with lots of different colors. So all
Yeah, I
of the
have a
rays, all of the rays of light that you're putting out in the world, if you could tell us
yeah.
about your multitudes. And then my follow-up question
Mhm.
after you kind of give us more insights is, where has audacity shown up
All
in the
right.
multitudes you contain?
I might have to have you repeat that afterwards. But
Oh, sure.
my trajectory, well, I started working for a hip hop dance company out of Philadelphia. It's the first and longest run hip hop dance company, and the choreographer is extraordinary, Rennie Harris, and I was with them for 14 years. And so we, the company toured, and we really did have to find our own way because we weren't necessarily the same kind of cookie cutter dance company. And I come from a dance background. I was trained at Philadelphia with Joan Myers Brown. I worked for Jose Limon. Lar Lubavitch, and I think earlier I mentioned Complexions Contemporary Ballet. And so I ended up working for Rennie for 14 years. And within that time, like I said, you can see the difference between predominantly white institutions and how they cultivated donors, and how we worked with the community as an organization that's closer to the margins. And we utilized hip hop, which was outside of the traditional artistic scape. So within working with RHPM, Rennie Harris Peer Movement, I worked with a lot of kids, and a lot of kids, and you could see their work or what they were struggling with show up in their choreography or in their art. And as I was segueing out of RHPM, I asked them what did they want, and they were like, "We want to understand how do we be kids in this situation." And at the time, it was so many um, young Black men being killed, and our kids were dealing with it. And young Black men were dealing with it. We were a hip hop dance company that was 90% Black, 90% Black and 99% male. So we had those conversations not only with Rennie, the choreographer, but also our teachers that would come in, and they had a real, authentic connection with these young people. I wanted to continue it. So I utilized Artists Within Reach, or we developed in tandem with the kids, Artists Within Reach, Notes to My Younger Self. And I used 6 Degrees of Separation to reach out to Terrell McCraney, who won an Academy Award for Moonlight. I reached out to Bill Irwin, who is Mr. Noodle, I think, on Sesame Street, but he's also a huge Tony Award winning actor. Malik Yoba, Desmond Richardson. We had Dice Raw from The Roots, and all of this was basically just calling friends and asking them who do they know, and having these people show up in the corridors where our young people resided, as opposed to having them bust into some other organizational structure that didn't actually resemble them. So and that was a 3-year project, and within doing that project, I recognized the fact that so many of these kids were going to move on to their own projects, and they were working on how to raise funds. And so we started the Black Donors Project. So everything is interconnected, and is based off of the information that our community feeds us. And then we use our skill set, or I build my skill set so that I can meet the moment for the people that I serve. So, in short, that's how I got to the Black Donors Project, and probably will move into something else because even with doing that, you kind of see a lot of the gaps, a lot of the things that we struggle with the community. But the one thing that we struggle with that has been a through line in everything is our trauma. So, figuring out how do we navigate through our trauma and find joy. And you asked me about my audacity. So my audacity is radically finding joy within everything that is built without us in mind. And in working with Black women specifically, I've always learned that there were alternate ways to do things. And so that's what I'm employing right now is, even though we have this framework, we're also realizing that none of those frameworks were built with us in mind, and they are breaking. So that means that I have an opportunity to step in and design something that's completely different and has the DNA of my community. So I'm excited. So when I say that I have joy, I am excited about what we're bringing, what we're going to create to meet this moment, because we are an extraordinary people. And I have no doubt that we are going to figure this out.
Ashe.
Ashe.
So your point around, like, I guess the audacity of joy, if I were to maybe paraphrase it, has me thinking about Cole Arthur Riley's book, Black Liturgies, Prayers, Poems, and Meditations for Staying Human. And I have really been struggling over the last 2 months with, I think, staying human. I feel as though my heart in different moments is hardening,
Mm-hmm.
where there may have been more generosity of spirit and empathy. And I have that for the populations that are under attack. When I think of my trans siblings and
Mhm,
migrants and immigrants and the LGBTQ community broadly, and Black and Indigenous and other people of color broadly.
mhm.
Um, and there's just this heaviness and a weariness that I'm trying to combat. And so when you talked about like the audacity of joy, I'm really curious about what your practices to incite joy are. Like, do you have rituals and routines? What keeps you rooted in this time?
I am a Buddhist, so I do chant and I do meditate, and that is where I find my center. And I have to really work through. I do my inner work, and I do question how things sit in my body, right? And how am I moving through? How do I respond to oppression, right? And I grew up, um, my parents are abolitionists, civil rights workers. My dad has since passed, but watching them figure things out and work as civil rights workers, interestingly enough, gives me joy. I love what I do. I love everything about what I do. So even my work brings me joy. And because I work with the Black community and its intersections, like you said, like the LGBTQIA community, the differently able community, our immigrant community, all of these communities, we all bring a sense of culture and a sense of invention and a different purview. And that's what I lean into. I know that this framework that we are living in has been designed as a white supremacist structure. So it's not speaking to me. When you speak to me, I'll listen. But until you do, I'm not,
Mm,
So I make sure that I lean into the communities that I serve and who serve me back. And I know that the energy, the frequency that we are sharing amongst each other in our connectivity is different than the our lived reality, right? So I can get really woo woo, but I really do believe that what we're going through right now is necessary for us to see what our possibilities are. We asked, we have demanded, we have worked towards something being different, and it is going to hurt, but it is also about sacrifice, and it is also about questioning, what do I want to be in this moment? And being okay with it. I've struggled with a number of things. One being imposter syndrome. So my meditation practice is very important. So my chanting is very important. My friendships are very important. My work is very important. So everything, I literally had to build my life um, almost with a set of boundaries so that I could walk through it regardless of what's happening with a sense of joy. Because I'm not going to wait for someone else to give it to me. I'm going to manufacture it for myself and my surroundings.
mm. Thank you for that. I think
Thank you.
I feel like your response is calling me into my agency to manufacture joy in the midst of what feels very destabilizing. Though I know the systems were not built for me, and I'm clear that the playbook keeps changing, depending, like I'm clear on all of the fuckery. Um, and yet I still find myself sometimes just like there's like an ebb and flow
Yeah.
uh, to being able to, I guess, be steadfast in joy as like a birthright, and really claiming it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your reminder of that.
I appreciate the reminder from our ancestors because I look back at the fact that we're here. We're miracles. We're walking, talking miracles. We were brought here as cargo. Okay. And so if my ancestors could have gotten through that, I can get through anything for the most part. But I also look at, the blueprint that my parents left, or my parents went through, and their parents before them. I know that the answer in which we're looking for lies within the past in which we've experienced our collective path. But my concern is, how do we dream in the midst of this? Like, what does it look like after we win? Right? Because we're so busy trying to survive. I'm focused on our win. And then how do we dream at what does it look like after we win? What does joy feel like in my body after we win? Who am I standing next to when we win? You know? And once I can answer some of those questions, then I can actually see it as a possibility. And then I can build out. So I'm hoping, or I wish for you to, or anyone who's listening, is really to understand we've been through this moment before. It feels different. It kind of feels like I think it was Johnson that said that we were in a collective moment of scared straight. So like, but we have to kind of go through something to see what we don't want, to really investigate what we do want and what we're willing to sacrifice to get it. And this is our sacrificing time.
Your question, what does it look like after we win,
Mm-hmm.
is provocative. And I'm wondering if you have any starter answers to that for you. Like, what does it look like after we win? Like, what dreaming spaces are you in right now?
Well, I'm going to take it for the Black Donors Project and looking at Black philanthropic giving, or philanthropic giving for those of us that are closest to the margins. I think that we're going, in my opinion, when we win means that we're going to close the gap in philanthropic giving and stop rooting it in high net worth individuals, and really to look at and build a bridge between those of us that have and those of us that bring other things to the table. Time, talent, treasure are very important. And if we can kind of look like, because I'm a micro philanthropic specialist, and I know the impact that small donations can have on the Black community. So when I'm dreaming, it looks like we have all tapped in. And we have all realized that we don't have to be multimillionaires to support and connect with one another and invest in each other's dreams. $5 a month, $25 a month can actually help us move our way out of this moment and invest in each other's dreams, and really kind of collectively see where our power really is, because we have much more power than we're actually activating. And I feel like this is the moment that's going to be the trigger that shows us how it can get done. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be all those things, but we'll be together. So my win on the other side of this is that everybody has a little something of their dream that they can kind of build out and move toward. Right now, some people don't feel that dream in their heart right now. Some people don't even know what it is. But on the other side of that, at least we know what it is, and you know that you have people around you that will help you get to it. Because if and when we win means that we did something to get to that point. So it means that there is something tangible there that we can support each other. So on the other side of this, to me, my win, I'm rooting for everybody Black.
Okay, Issa Rae.
That
Okay.
part, I took her statement and I run with it. Blackity black, black, black every day.
Yes, 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 yes. So speaking of being blackety black, black, black every day, you've talked about your parents as
Yes.
abolitionists and civil rights workers, and your ancestors you've called into this conversation. How do you think your identity as a Black woman in all of its multiplicities impacts like your leadership style and your approach to the work that you're doing and how you're moving through life?
I think I might have said it earlier, which is these are systems that aren't built for us. And I was, and you were also in this perspective as well. I am surrounded around Black women who show us that there are alternatives to the box that people put us in, right? Um, so me showing up as a Black woman is basically looking at the other Black women in my stratosphere, um, and building off of that, like the Kimberly Crenshaw and the intersectionality, Dr. Jackie Copeland, which is the founder of Black Philanthropy Month. She is such an inspiration to me, and the fact that now every August we have this opportunity to support each other and really tell our stories in a way that's not going to be hijacked or utilized or repurposed. Nicole Hannah Jones, the 1619 Project, Cracks in the Foundation report, Yannick Redwood, like these Black women have done extraordinary things that I can build on and I can see and I can use to shape how I see my future. And that's an alternative to what we see presented to us or delivered to us in terms of what Black women are portrayed as. In, I guess, what I'll say the media, because up against in my world, watching these Black women, Makia, it's extraordinary. And it is so beautiful. And I can understand why people would be threatened, because we're brilliant, we're fabulous, we're all the things. So if you don't have your game on point, okay, that's on you, but I want to take everything that they're trying to give. I want to learn it. I want to go on my own learning journey with my friends, with my colleagues, with my community, and see where we end up. There's a lot of humility in seeing what other women can accomplish. And then you look at yourself and what can I do? I can do something similar, but we're all in this together. And like when you win, I win. And I'm so proud of the Black women that are in my stratosphere. I'm proud of the women that are in my stratosphere. Because they're not all Black. And but I will say the ones that are closest that I learned from in order to be a Black woman in this space, to show up without apologies. Yeah, I wake up every day knowing that the Black women that shaped me growing up have something to do with who I am now, and the Black women that I'm around now are shaping who I am becoming.
Do you get the sense your comment when you win, I win?
Mm-hmm.
I found myself nodding, and then a split second later, it was like, but I don't know a lot of people that feel that way.
Yeah.
About just kind of like creating like what I think of as like trampoline support for
Mm-hmm.
individuals, where it's like a win for you would be seen, like I would claim that too, just because like we're all moving towards whatever destination that we've mapped out for ourselves. I think that's the aspiration that I would have for us,
Yeah.
and for the sector writ large. Like thinking about your comments about some of the gaps in philanthropy, I'm often curious about the amount of like partnership and collaboration that doesn't happen,
Mm-hmm.
since entities have been stood up and seem to be vying for their own, I guess,
Yes.
like livelihood, staying power, when actually there's a lot of complementarity across organizations, the ecosystem, what have you, where folks might be able to get further faster by just realizing what unique superpowers one organization has that they could bring to bear in partnership with another,
That part. Mm-hmm.
versus just like standing up organization after organization, or having something that's created based on maybe just like an ego of a leader, but
Mm-hmm.
not really taking into account like the bevy of resources that could be deployed that are already in existence in some way.
Right.
So I feel like the you win, I win, or like the you win, we win. I wish that mindset was more, what's the word? More prevalent, I think,
Mhm.
as we are kind of doing this thing called life.
I think that well, I don't know. I want to believe that we're moving towards it, right? I feel like COVID taught us a lot of things. Like this is our precursor to this moment, and unfortunately, we lost so many lives in that moment. But it
Mm,
showed us how our solidarity showed up, but also how living or existing in silos doesn't work for us. We had to work as a collective in order to survive. We had to work as a collective just to get vaccinated. you know,
mm,
so so and I started off this conversation with I have a lot of unpopular opinions that people are like, you're tripping. And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. But I would like to see where I am tripping because I do believe that our answer lies in the collective. We're working in these silos. We're a bunch of organizations doing the same thing. We're using the same language. It doesn't belong to us. What happens if we collectively fundraise? What happens if instead of just fundraising, my last campaign was my best campaign ever and could possibly have more legs. So what I did was I asked for folks to become recurring donors at $5 a month, and I asked for them to take another $20 a month and find four other organizations that they can, tap into and support throughout this year. So altogether, you're giving $25 a month. You're identifying five organizations. You're giving $5 a month. And with Black organizations, I think it was Young Blacks Give Back or Young Black and Giving Back did a report on most Black-led organizations run between 30,000 and 500,000. So if we all individually went on the Giving App and I found an organization or five organizations that we could support at $5 a month, that's $60 a year to each of those organizations. And if we do that collectively, we can take care of one another and invest in each other's dreams. And that's what I see. In terms of collective, we're already sharing a lot of the same donors. So why not look at it from a space of abundance as opposed to scarcity? I have never had an issue putting my donors together or working with another organization, even galas. You could have a gala with more than one organization because basically you're still tapping into that hierarchy and you're doing exactly what we say that we're trying to work against. We always say that people voted against their best interest. We're also giving against our best interest. We really do have to do our homework, figure out how we can tap into the Black community and give into our community so that we can invest in each other's dreams. And then we can invest in other people's dreams and be a part of other people's dreams, or either just show our blueprint, share our blueprint, use someone else's blueprint to make sure that we're not always beholden on someone else giving or thinking that our existence is based on whether they show up or not, because that has not been my reality. My reality has always been my community showing up.
mm. That's wonderful to hear. And also just well, one, I don't think you're tripping. And two, um, I think just the reframing and the rethinking of like what's possible. So other
Mhm,
design choices, like you mentioned the gala and how it doesn't
mhm,
just have to feature and platform one organization. There could be kind of like collective giving opportunities for the gala, or even
mhm.
just this ripple effect of your most recent campaign where you got the recurring donors and then invited them to find other organizations to also invest in. I think that it's
Right.
just there's a certain creativity, I think, related to how you're conceiving of what's possible, which is not surprising to me, given that, this conversation started out with you talking about systems that aren't built for us and how, like, in this moment, there's the opportunity for the breaking to then birth and build something new. And you're definitely a builder. I think, like, I have like architect You're like a cultural architect in my mind.
Somebody said, well, she wasn't speaking. I was on a webinar the other day, and the woman said, it's extraordinary, it's peak grant makers, Black Caucus. And I can't remember her name, and I would love to give her credit, but she said, you have to figure out if you're a builder or a flyer. And I was like, oh, you know what? That helps a lot. And then you saying that again. And I never saw myself as that. I just kind of felt like I was, getting in where I fit in, and trying to help lessen the gap. But I guess I am a builder, but I also want to be responsive to what our community says they need. And sometimes I feel like we build things and then we say we want our community to show up for us. I build based on what my community says they need. And sometimes I build it and they're like, yeah, I don't want it no more. Okay. Now what do we do? But there's always something from whatever we build that we can repurpose and utilize and see the through line and how it's connected to something else. Um, so there was something else I wanted to say that, but I didn't write it down. So if I remember, I'll bring it back up. But I think that our community is a community of builders, and you can see how extraordinarily talented and smart our folks are. And that's really what I want to see every day. I want to see just how brilliant in all the ways our culture is, because I just have never been one to listen to someone else's narrative.
Hmm. Wow. Well, this conversation has been like a welcome passing of fresh air. um, as I think about what I'm taking away from it, which I know I'll
Mhm.
be kind of mulling over throughout the course of this week. One of them being just the question, I'm not really in a dreaming space. And so I feel like you've offered an invitation to us to actually think about dreaming,
Mhm.
and what the world is that we want to create in this moment of rupture, and breaking. So, what does it look like after we win?
Mhm.
I think I'm going to sit with that question, as well as what does it look like for me to invest in my dreams as well as
Mhm.
those of others. So, just rethinking some of my philanthropic commitments and what I want to prioritize in 2025. Um,
Yay.
I think it's been, yeah, this has been a nice spark or catalyst for me going a little deeper in those areas.
Yeah. And
Uh,
know that I wanted just to top it off with there are going to be mistakes, right? Like I put things out there and I create but I want someone to push back and tell me, hey, this may not work because whatever. Because I feel like even if whatever I create or whatever I dream or whatever I put out there, even if it's not right, the conversation that we have together to figure out why it's not right and how can it get right is a process within itself on seeing what our possibilities are and where our resources lie and who is in the room. So even though I put a lot of these things out, like having a gala that's a collective, if someone didn't like it, I want them to approach me and say, that's stupid. Tell me why. Let's work it through. Let's figure it out, because working in this matter is not working for us. So what's the alternative? Or do we keep participating in things that weren't designed for us and we still get exactly how it's designed? We don't get anything from it, and we continue to do the same thing, getting very little bit from it by putting everything that we are into it. So let's not so my whole thing is like, let's adjust the aperture a little bit and see exactly what we can do. What can we come up with?
hmm. Yeah, what's possible?
Hmm.
Oh, Jeri, I am so glad that we had time together today.
You're
Um,
so kind.
uh, I think my closing question for you is, as we bring this conversation to a close, what's a word that describes where you are in this moment?
Humbled. I'm humbled. You also, I want to say to you what you bring into this space of connectivity for Black women, and the fact that you reached out to me and asked for this conversation. You are such a shining factor in this space for us as Black women, as women. So I am humbled and I am gracious, and I want to see you full of joy. And I think that we're going to get there. I'm going to look across the room and be like, yeah, girl, we did it. We won.
Oh, I love that. And thank you. Thank you for the affirmation and for the projection that we will be locking eyes in the near distant future to say, like, we did it, we
Yeah.
won.
Yeah. We're going to have our champagne flutes and everything. We're going to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeri. It's been a delight.
Thank you so much. You're a joy. I love you. Thank you so much.